for March 10th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Supervisor Kyle?
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Trustee Hayward?
Here.
Trustee Morocco?
Here.
Trustee Nalanathu? Here. Trustee Tedder?
Here.
And Treasurer Bound is absent this evening. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Next is to approve the agenda. Before we do that, I need to pull an item from the consent, which is the minutes. Where are the minutes
You
at?
can wait until that.
Okay, the minutes. Yeah, but if I pull it now, then it just falls under items pulled, right? So I've dropped into K. So just so you don't know, pull it, we're gonna talk a minute about it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, moving consent agenda item J1 to K1.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'll
that's-
make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Public comments. After being recognized by the chair, individuals in the audience may address the township board. Speakers must go to the center mic and identify himself or herself, limiting their comments to not more than 5 minutes. Sorry, I went to comments first, but I should have gone to board and public announcements. Board members and or other individuals in the audience may make a statement containing information about a recent or upcoming event. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to talk about an announcement? No. Okay. Anybody online for an announcement? No? Up to the board? Anybody from the board? Trustee Tedder.
Thank you. Had a great coffee and conversation last month. It was well received and well attended per the desire of the residents, and we're going to go ahead and continue that. It'll be March 21st, 8:30 to 9:30 at Leo's Coney. Again, that's coffee and conversation, and everybody's welcome.
Excellent. Any other comments or announcements? Sorry, announcements? Nope. All right, then I'm going to close public announcements. Public comments. After being recognized by the chair, individuals in the audience may address the township board. Speaker must go to the center mic and identify himself or herself, limiting their comments to not more than 5 minutes regarding items that do not appear on the agenda. Does anyone have any public comments? No? Okay. Anybody online? Nope. Anybody up here? No? All right, I'm going to close public comments. We're going to go to the public hearing. There isn't any. At this time, we will then go to the presentation from the Planning Commission Annual Report of 2025. The chair, Bill Scarborough, will be making the presentation in coordination with Megan, possibly. You go over to that podium there. Yep.
Hi, Bill Scarborough, Chairman of the Planning Commission. You recall I did this last year. It was the first time. It is required by either the zoning enabling act or the planning, and I forget which one. But so I want to continue this. It was in the agenda packet. It's pretty self-explanatory. I really wasn't planning on making a presentation, but I would be certainly glad to do so if some of you, I assume you all looked at it, and answer any questions anybody may have.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions? Or comments, I should say, regarding that questions?
For the benefit of the audience, I would just say it outlines our memberships, the meetings, various applications we reviewed during the year, a couple zoning ordinance amendments we reviewed, and some moved forward, and goals for next or for this current year. So basically what it is.
Bill, can you just go through the list real quick of the development applications? Just it just gives you a summary of how much of each task you did, just so the residents kind of know what the volume of the commission is. And I do want
Yeah.
to say that I do appreciate this. I went through it. We hadn't been having those in my past years on here, and I think this is really
Yeah.
helpful, and it gives you kind of an idea of the pace and, requests that we're getting. So appreciate all the effort that went into it, because it's a pretty extensive report.
Thank you. Yeah, we looked at 13 site plan approval reviews, 5 special land uses, 5 PUD requests and amendments, 5 agenda items having to do with rezonings, 14 items concerning ordinance amendments, 2 master plan updates, and out of those, we had a total of 17 public hearings. Now, some of these may be, when I say we looked at 13 agenda items, that could be one agenda item we looked at 4 different times. So it doesn't mean we looked at 13 different projects. The projects we looked at was Main Street Investors. And again, this was, I think that one was 2 hearings. It was a rezoning on the west side of Sashaba, north of Fleming Lake, rezoning to OS2. And we recommended approval of that, and the board did grant that approval. Clearview Homes, this was an application we looked at many times. I think it overlapped 2024 and 5. It was an expansion of the Eagle Ridge project on Mabee Road. And that ultimately got to the point where we recommended approval to the board, and the board granted that. Express Car Wash was the car wash at Mabee in Sashaba. For the benefit of the audience, that was a PUD application, and the PUD applications are a 2-step process. There's preliminary review and then final. Technically, on a preliminary review, we don't take a vote. We don't say yes or no or move forward. We give them our comments and things like that, and they decide whether they want to continue to pursue it. After the preliminary review on this particular item, they decided not to pursue it. Kirk-O-Mannix was an expansion to the Monarch Grove project on Sashaba up the road. They wanted to put a couple of basically pretty much freestanding. I mean, they were attached, but not, I forget how many to a building. It wasn't very many. Units, almost like separate homes for people to live in. And again, we finally approved that with some conditions. Versus development, that was the final phase of the commercial portion of Walden Village. And after several hearings, we recommended approval, and the board granted that. Khalid Dagger, Planet Car Wash. That was some changes that they wanted to make at the car wash over here on Sashaba. It was new owners, and they wanted to make several changes. Again, multiple hearings. It was an amendment to a PUD, and after several hearings, we finally recommended approval, and that moved forward. Isaac Hanna was the gas station up on Sashaba, just north of I-75. That was a site plan special land use approval. They're expanding the building, mobile gas station. They're expanding the building and adding a drive-through and making some fairly significant, deserved and needed changes to mitigate the additional traffic that project will generate. And that application was recommended for approval to the board. This says that board approval was pending. It was when I produced this. At the end of the year, it was pending, but I believe possibly in January, the board did approve that. 11211 LLC. It's a vet clinic on Ortonville Road, north of the expressway. What's the name of that cross street there, Sam? Do you know?
Amy
Or-
Drive.
Is it Amy?
Yeah.
What is it?
Amy?
Amy, yeah. That was a vacant piece of parcel, and somebody wanted to put a vet clinic there. We did grant approval of that. There's 3 parcels of land on Dixie Highway on the north end, almost to I-75, but not quite, that are vacant, and they do not comply with the master plan. The master plan calls for them to be OS2, I believe it is. There is currently zoned commercial C4, and the township did initiate some rezoning to comply with the master plan on that. That's still in process. And finally, Trinity Health, that's the former Rite Aid at the shopping center at Main Street in Dixie. That was just a minor thing for some sign changes with Trinity Health taking over that spot. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the various projects we looked at in '25.
Good. Any other questions or comments? No? All right.
Thanks.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill.
All right, carry over postponed agenda items. There aren't any. From a consent standpoint, we're going to start with 2. Request to approve the March 3rd, 2026 check run, including the ACH, for $1,674,574.86, and ratify the February 13th and February 27th, 2026 payroll for $332,020.31 and $332,875.58. Request to approve the 2025 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG Public Service Contract with Springfield Township, and request to approve the 2026 Budget Amendment Number 6 for the Parks and Rec and Senior Department. And that's, can I get a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I pulled K1 for the minutes because I read through the minutes and I made an incorrect statement that I want to correct for the record. Do you have that?
I'm getting that, yep. It's page 4 of the minutes.
Page 4 of the minutes. Can I just see your left for a second here? I made the comment that, the minutes reflect the supervisor file commented that 2 legal opinions have been provided in the packet regarding the topic proposed for closed session. That was incorrect. Only one was going to be in there, and it was going to be presented at the closed session, so it was not, neither of them were in the packet itself. I misspoke, so I just want to clarify that.
Appreciate that.
Yep,
Okay.
okay. I don't think we have to do a motion or anything like that. So now we're down to regular business.
I have to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Are they going to be amended, or just the way they're presented? I mean, he said it,
No.
you can't change what he said.
No, but you
But-
still should, yes,
Yeah.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. You should accept the minutes, though. You still have to approve the
Yeah.
minutes.
We do,
Yes.
okay.
As amended?
There's
No, that can't be
no
amended.
amendment.
Okay.
There's no
No.
Just
amendment.
clarification,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll move to accept the minutes from the February 17th. Can I, did I even know I wasn't at that meeting, Dan? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. For the February 17th, 2026 meeting minutes.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes approved. Regular business, request to approve the firefighter, or the first reading of the zoning ordinance. Zoning ordinance for the text amendment to section 14.02, the zoning ordinance to specify procedure for appointment of alternates to the zoning board of appeals. And this is being brought forth by Megan, who is acting as our planning consultant.
Good evening, board members. The zoning ordinance amendment before you is to appoint alternates to the zoning board of appeals. That's particularly important because in order for any motion to pass, the zoning board of appeals for a variance, which is an exception to the rules, 3 members must vote in the affirmative. And often, members might be absent for various reasons, or often on the ZBA, there's a conflict of interest, Or because you have a township board member and a planning commission liaison, if they're gonna vote later or have voted on that case before, they, by state law, cannot vote on that. So not having the ability to have the alternates there in these 3 cases where there might be a member absent, is important. So what's before you are amendments to the zoning ordinance that give the township board the ability to appoint the alternates. And that language is taken directly from the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you about it.
Okay. Before we do that, is there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, are there any comments online? No, okay, I'll close the public and bring it up to the board. Trustee Tedder?
Yeah, Megan, just a quick question / comment. In paragraph 2 of your letter, it reads, "Please note that procedures such as which an alternate is called, training and attendance by alternates can be regulated by the ZBA rules of procedure, which are under development." So I wholeheartedly support the spirit of having alternates, but I also believe that they should be equally informed as the regular members, and I believe that's the intent. And I'm just hopeful that before the second reading and final approval, that these procedures would be presented in a way that the board may be able to approve them, I'm assuming, or is this, what's the process with, I'm reading it's under development, the procedures are under development.
Thank you for that clarifying question. The rules of procedure are under development and then have to go through a process where they're approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then they're accepted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and you approve them. So the Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet in March because they would only have had 3 members, and the applicants asked to be withdrawn rather than just having the 3-vote scenario. So they will see those draft rules of procedures for the first time at their meeting in April. And then at that point in time, it could be forwarded to you for approval. What we could do is in your next packet, when these would come back, if you choose to go to a second reading, to include the draft rules of procedures that are here at this present, that would be in the state that they were at that moment.
Okay. And just one quick follow-up, I appreciate that. So the training and attendance expectations, those would be consistent with what we would expect of our ZBA?
Yes, those would be consistent with what you expect for your ZBA. Also, at the last meeting the ZBA had, we brought to their attention training that's available through Michigan Association of Planning, and I believe 4 members of the 5 have elected to do that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
I assume those
Matthew?
procedures will tell you how you pick one of the 2 that's going to be there.
Yes, those are in there as well.
Okay.
So
Clerk
this is a
Newbeck?
suggestion, if we're meeting before ZBA meets to approve those, the board could contingently approve that pending the ZBA's approval, if there weren't any changes.
I don't know your charter and rules well enough. I'm going to defer to your township attorney on process.
So, but, do you mean approve the rules of procedure
Yeah.
before I'd wait till the ZBA reviews them and offers them to you.
Okay,
you know.
okay.
And I don't know if that affects this coming back, but that's what I would do.
Okay.
Right. When is the next ZBA meeting?
The next ZBA meeting is scheduled for April 1st, and there are, I believe, 7 cases on the agenda.
Oh, it's gonna be a long night.
I have a question.
Okay. Trustee Morocco?
So, Megan, where would we be, so I think that we need to get this done as soon as possible so we have bodies appointed, because that then, even once we have the second reading, now we have another meeting to appoint those people. So if we have this reading, then we have the next meeting or the second reading, and the third meeting, when we're hoping to have that, you know, wouldn't that be the meeting that then the supervisor would recommend the appointment of the alternate after we've created it?
Yeah, they want to let her address it, because I think that's what she's,
We could have that at the
Yeah.
same meeting, and just be a subsequent, once we approve the second reading and
Okay.
adoption, then we could
Okay,
appoint
I
that
can
same
see
meeting.
how us pre-approving the rules and regulations and guidelines would be a little bit sketchy, because there's been a lot of dialogue about what those requirements should be, and I think the zoning board hasn't had a chance to
That's fine.
hammer those out. But I do want to, I'm in favor of fast tracking to get the bodies in place, as long as it doesn't put us in, you know, any harm's way, because I'd rather find a way to have the alternates. Would be nice if they were at a meeting with 7 agenda items, so they could start getting their feet wet, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's possible, that, if the meeting's in April, if we could do it that, but point being, I'm in favor of moving to get the bodies there, and then immediately following it up with a consensus of the obligation, you know, and duties.
so I have a follow-up question. Just to be clear, anyone that we would appoint as an alternate, and it would function as a voting member, would even today, without the procedures of being finished, the rules of procedures being finished, would still be subjected to the same rules and procedures that the current sitting voting members have, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they still have to follow the existing rules and everything else that are in place. We're just looking at getting those fine-tuned, I guess, or updated, and that's why they're going through that exercise.
Yes.
Do they exist currently, the rules?
There wasn't existing rules. I think there were rules of conduct and also what's been governed by state law and the zoning ordinance.
So there are, but they're just not township-specific ones.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
accurate.
Okay. Okay, so it's no harm, no foul, so to speak, other than the fact that we would all probably wish the procedures would get done fast.
Yes, and if anyone has, I know trustee Morocco at the planning commission, special planning commission meeting had given me a list of things that that would be expected in those rules of procedure. And I know if you have other input, we'd welcome that as well.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, so can I get a motion then to approve the first reading?
I move to approve the introduction and first reading of the ordinance to amend the Charter Township of Independence Ordinance Code, Chapter 50 zoning ordinance, revisions to Article 14 and Section 14.02 to specify procedures for appointment of alternates to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and schedule the second reading on the next available Board of Trustees regular meeting, following the required publication date.
Second?
Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, great. Motion carried. Okay, the next item, thank you, Meg, is a request to approve the building department job descriptions and corresponding budget amendments. My understanding is that the director's on vacation, so the deputy director gets to make his first presentation in front of the board.
Good evening, Board. My name's Chad Hine. I'm the Deputy Building Official. We're here tonight to seek the Board's approval for 3 new positions associated with the new rental ordinance and the restructuring of our building department, the building planning and zoning. So the first 2 positions are rental clerk and rental inspector, and I believe you have the job descriptions in there, but both of those positions are going to be support for the implementation of the new rental ordinance. The third position that we're seeking approval for is the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator is going to be created to support the operational day-to-day needs for the building department. Carlisle Workman Associates is still going to be handling certain planning related, but The zoning administrator is going to be in the office handling day-to-day functions for us. The creation of all these positions is basically budget neutral. The income and revenues that are going to be generated through the new rental ordinance, and then the restructuring of our department for the building, planning, and zoning department offsets for that third position as well. So,
Okay. Any comments from the audience? No? Okay. Any comments from online? All right, I'll bring it up to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Morocco.
Just for clarification, Chad, there's no more staff being added? Are these lateral moves for the staff we have now, or are you hiring people?
no, these will be all three new staff positions.
They're all gonna be all new staff, so.
Yes.
Okay, so the staff that we moved over, there's gonna stay in,
No one, yes.
doing the same stuff for enforcement of the ordinance and stuff, they're gonna stay in that department, and this is gonna be a new set of people?
Correct.
Okay, and that's all gonna be, what we talked about, covered by
The two
the
new
cost.
positions, as far as the rental side, are gonna be specifically handling all of our rental needs. We anticipate well over, I believe the number's 2,400. That's just in apartment units. That's not even considering single-family homes. So it's gonna be quite a task for those two individuals.
And to your point, yes, that is 100% correct. That is the original projection when we came to the board to talk about bringing this short-term, long-term rental ordinance in place did address the fact that the anticipated revenue from the applicants and inspections and whatnot would cover all the costs. So it is a expense neutral thing. We just need these jobs descriptions didn't exist. There was no point in bringing them forward until we approved the short-term, long-term ordinance. Any other questions or comments from the board? Clerk Newbeck.
The zoning administrator doesn't fall under the short-term, long-term rental though, so how is that budget neutral?
There was budgets already put in place to cover the absence of Brian, Carl Wortman. And so it was always anticipated and discussed prior to the budget that they would fulfill a role for a certain period of time, and then they would be stepping away.
Okay, thank you.
Stepping, to be clear, stepping away from the low level, not to be derogatory, but the
Counter
lower
job.
level. Yeah, the counter type situation. Correct, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? All right, then can I get a motion to approve the job descriptions as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed job description for rental clerk as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Can I get the next one?
Make a motion to approve the proposed job description for rental inspector as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to approve the proposed job description for zoning administrator as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
And then finally, I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment number 7 for the creation of 3 new positions as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Oh, he was gone, that was quick. All right, next on the agenda, we have a request to accept the proposed pre-construction service at Fire Station number 2 and approve the budget amendment for number 5. For that, we have the chief coming up to explain this.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
As the supervisor said, we're here to get accepted for Fire Station 2 proposal for pre-construction services and a budget amendment to accompany that. For AUK Construction, they're going to be the builder for the new Fire Station 2. So we're at the point where we're pulling them forward and getting them involved in design, schematic design and design development. As month 1 has gone by, we've met twice with AKA, that's the Architectural Services Group. On the beginning, just kind of early thoughts on design, floor layout of the new fire station, while they do surveying and geo services of the property. So we're kind of at that point where AUK needs to be brought in these discussions for the construction to ensure, and it safeguards the township's interest, financial interests, that we're designing something that we can afford under the budget that we would like to be under. So AUK gets involved with AKA in that design process. They dovetail together to ensure that designer is designing something that the builder can build under that budget to protect all of us. So we're at that position now where we'd like to get that implemented and kind of move forward with the project.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? No? Okay, any comments from online? No? Okay, I'm gonna bring it up to the board. Chief's been a little modest. He actually kind of beat up AUK a little bit to have them come forward, start coming in and putting their neck out a little bit on the line a little earlier in the game. So we're not waiting for the full $400,800 to be spent to find out if we're gonna stay on their budget. We're gonna find out now, really at the end of phase one of the AKA. So really, we're gonna spend probably somewhere around, what, 50 or 60,000?
Approximately
I think total,
52,000, yeah.
to find out whether or not we're gonna be able to stay within that $9 million budget.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's why I said, you know, he's being a little modest and not bringing that forward. But Trustee Tedder.
Thank you. I mentioned in a previous meeting, my son was hired by Out Construction back in late December, so I will seek to recuse myself from any votes related
Okay.
to their consideration.
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
So the board has to approve that for a recusal.
Well, you do, actually.
Okay.
Now, if they deny it, you can still recuse.
Okay, that's what I figured. I knew there was a process
Yeah,
there, so.
I mean, ultimately, you know, right, but
Just trying to be
I'll
transparent.
make a motion to accept the recusal for Tedder, Trustee Tedder, on the motion in front of us regarding the pulling forward of the 18,000.
Support?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're not opposed? Okay, good.
Maybe next time.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Easy. All right, can I get a motion then, please?
Move to accept proposal for pre-construction services of Independence Township Fire Station 2 in the amount not to exceed $18,320 as submitted by AUK Construction of Pontiac, Michigan pursuant to Section 3.2 Competitive Sealed Bidding Procurement Procedures of the Township Procurement Petty Cash Credit Card Policy, and direct the supervisor to sign the proposal as authorized representative of the township.
Support?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Do we have a second part?
You got to do the second one.
Oh, there is.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, the budget, sorry.
Move to
Yeah, go
transfer
ahead.
funds from the fire operating fund to fire capital improvement plan fund in the amount of $18,320 and approve the 2026 budget amendment number 5 as presented.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Tedder? Trustee Tedder, did you vote on that, or did you recuse from that as well?
I recused just because it was all part
Okay.
of the
Okay.
funds were kind of going toward the,
Thank you for clarification.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I don't know what the agendas you have out there. If there's a 4 was pulled and moved prior to the meeting to the closed session, budget session, study session. This is a MAPE that has been brought forward by 2 trustees, Sam Morocco and Jim Tedder, to discuss regarding the CIP and potential bonding issues that are involved potentially going forward. These involve, so I have a little thing here, these issues involve significant financial and planning consideration, and it would be my perspective that rather than providing an incomplete or speculative decision tonight, I believe it makes more responsibility to bring a standard structured presentation to the board at the next meeting so everyone has the same information, but it's not mine. So, you know, you gentlemen, however you want to proceed.
Yeah, I just, I know there's a lot of chatter around the township, you know, just in speaking with residents, it sounds like that, it's really time for the, you know, better late than never to have the board brought up to speed on what some of these larger plans are and concepts. So, that was my spirit of intent with this, is just to kind of get to the same level of understanding, of the same, of information that has been shared throughout, the community. and also outside the community as well. So that's the simple spirit of intent behind mine. It's really kind of an open-ended question, for the supervisor. But I think that was your statement?
My little thing, yeah, that
Yeah,
was my
yeah.
direction.
So I don't have any qualms about that. I just think depends on, where you're at. And, but again, I think it's beneficial for all of us to be brought up to speed, because I feel like instead of being the last person to know, we should be among the first to know. And, I respectfully asked, for some information to be shared, previously, and you said that it would, when you're ready, you'll share that information. And so, again, I am of the understanding you have shared information publicly, and so I'm just asking to be brought up to speed, that's all.
So in regard to that, these are extremely important things, and there's a process that has to happen, and we need to go through. Nothing has been defined other than what we've already discussed with the fire department. And so from that standpoint, we understand that aspect of things. I think that, from all the other aspects of things, it would be a disservice to the community, and I think to the residents, to be able to sit back and go on conjecture. There isn't anything that's been finalized yet. Any decision that comes up regarding any sort of financing, and there's several different tools that we could use in the financing, should all still be on the table, but none of them can be utilized until the board approves it in a public setting. Okay, so from that standpoint, I think what would make the most sense, because you've been briefed on the park, right? You all had a confidential briefing on that. So that came out, I believe, a week ago, and it was to you. Nothing material has changed since that brief went out, so there's nothing there to discuss. Anything that we would want to discuss on that, per the township attorney, was said that should be done in closed session and allowed by the Open Meetings Act, and specifically designed for the Open Meetings Act for those types of things, as you pointed out previously in the last meeting. So I think what would make the most sense is to let me come forward with a presentation to bring up to speed on what are the things that we're looking at, and again, knowing that nothing has been finalized. I think there's a little bit of a misconception in the sense of the fact that you think we're much further down the road than what we really are.
Well, respectfully, nothing is finalized until the board approves.
For sure.
Approves it.
Absolutely.
But again, I'm just forecasting, again, conceptually, if there's some big ticket items that the board is gonna be asked to vote on, with or without voter input, that we should be in the know earlier rather than later, rather than, again, little pockets and leaks throughout. I feel very, very ill-informed, and I'm getting information from residents in lieu of, my counterpart here on the board, which I think is kind of backwards in my opinion, that I shouldn't be finding out from residents what's going on. And I'm not speaking to any memos, because there's been a lot of public conversations that you have had. And respectfully, I would just like to, and I think the other residents would be equally interested in knowing where things are at, because you are having public conversations. They're not that tight to the vest as they may have been 6 months ago or a year ago. So that's where I'm coming from, and that was the spirit of intent for me. I'm not gonna speak for Trustee Morocco, but again, as one of 7 members, I like to be informed. I do my homework, prepare for meetings, and so if I know whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, I'm gonna be asked to consider a heavy lift, I don't want it presented to me a week before, a month before, and that's where I'm coming from, just so you understand.
And I will, to that point, and I know we'll get to you in a minute, Sam. You always have a comment, so.
Sitting quietly.
Is that, to your point, I am not gonna bring anything to the board until it's basically finalized. And I mean finalized in the sense of the fact that we know what specific we're gonna talk about. We know we've done engineering study. We know we've got the financial models. We know we have the needs analysis. We know how we're gonna finance it, at least from an option standpoint. At that point in time, I am absolutely bringing it to the board and letting them know, and letting you guys know. And then you guys get to make an intelligent, informed decision based on the facts. Anything prior to that is just conjecture, and I'm not gonna go through and play the what-if game. So that's my position. That is my authority as a township supervisor to be able to do that. I have been issuing those memos, those confidential memos, to give you more update. There's more contained in there than has been, hopefully, because it is not me having the conversations, that is in those confidential briefings than I have been discussing. And anyone that I have been talking to that may have been privy to any of that have been, staff members that are working on some of this stuff. They've been under strict guidance not to repeat any of that. So, anything else, for exactly the reason why you bring it up, starts to create rumors and misinformation and disinformation and all that kind of stuff. We're not doing that. So I'm telling everybody here now that when it comes down to the point of here's where we're at, this is where decisions need to start being made, then absolutely I bring it to the board. Most likely it'll come through a closed session to begin with, and then we'll bring it out to the public to discuss. Just the way it was designed to do by the Roberts rules and everything else. I do not want to keep a secret. That is part of the reason why I sent out the confidential briefing. I didn't have to do that. I did it because I wanted you guys to be up at the same level where I'm at on that.
I'll let Trustee.
Okay. So really what, and again, this dialogue, we're not trying to be confrontational,
Yeah.
we want to talk about it. So, and I don't want to go into any details that we don't need to, but, there's about probably 5 things that we've talked about that could be capital improvement projects. Maybe say 4, whatever number that is, okay? So I guess my concern is, we haven't really got a consensus of the board on do we want you pursuing all 4 of those things? And you have a right to expend energy to pursue them and then bring them to us. It could be more efficient if you, asked which of the 4 projects or 5 that, if we're all on board with all 5 worth researching. That's just a suggestion, okay? That's a different way of doing it, because I don't want you a lot of time to be wasted and then we're not on, we're not on board with it, or you've been negotiating or whatever, that's fine. So I guess what I just wanted to do is, if you're gonna bring a presentation at the next meeting with something, I'm fine waiting for that. I'm gonna go through just a short list of things I'm going to expect from that presentation, if possible, if you can share it at that presentation so that you're not sidetracked by it. And I think that the residents, and one of them would be is, how, and they might not be in the right order. So how big of a bond would we be asking for, What kind of bond would you propose? And I can give you this list if you want, but,
Okay.
Just because there's different ways. Some have to have public input, some don't, some are self-funded. So, there's just different ways. I'd like to kind of have an idea of that before we get too far into it. And then what are the requirements of public input and not? And the only reservation I have about doing a large bond is that the public, whether they support it or not, and that's why there's millages and bond initiatives, because it proves to the elected officials that there is public support for that debt that we're acquiring. So if that's required or not, where does that line get drawn, and how do you either have to include them or not, just because, depending on the bond that you are entertaining, who had the input on the proposed CIP? So I don't know what group, who you've been talking to, if it's just your initiatives, if it's a collaboration between people, just kind of how these needs arose and where they're, who supports them, kind of. How were the needs identified? How are they prioritized in case we don't decide to do all of them? Which ones would be the most beneficial to the residents, and then the other part is, if we don't get their approval, I think that any improvements we do, talking about just vaguely what we've talked about, there's gonna need to be some operating capital to sustain the investment, like you always do. You put in buildings, infrastructure, now you gotta have money to sustain them and run them and maintain them. So just how does that work? I think that we need a millage at some point in the parks because of the conditions of our parks. We've been trying to do it with the general fund, and I don't think we've been doing a very good job of it. Our parks could be way nicer if they had more funding, so I would want to consider some other mechanism, whether we expand the parks or don't expand the parks. I don't think we have been able to, with the general fund, have our parks at the level that I think that, have all paved parking lots, have nicer bathrooms. Like, we've been just kind of patching for decades. We haven't really done any major infrastructure other than where other people have funded, or the park, the new playground, you know what I mean? But the parks themselves, and I know a little more now because I'm been with Chad and we're starting to look at some of the facilities and stuff, and there's a lot of stuff we could do to make the parks a little bit nicer. So I would like to figure out if any of this funding could pertain to bringing the parks up to the level I'd like to see them at, and it not be a deterrent to us getting to that point because we've moved funds other here. So I'd like it to be all encompassing, even if it's more money, to get to the finish line. And then the verification, just how that's getting covered, how we're gonna pay for all of that, those are just those general kind of things. I wanna feel comfortable if we don't go to a vote, because the other thing is that if we do a bond and it doesn't have to have if the public doesn't have to vote on the bond, they still have the opportunity to ask us to make it a ballot item. And they only have like 45 days to do that. And there's a trigger that starts that. And I want to be, whether the public agrees or not, I want to make sure when you bring the stuff forward, that if whatever, Dan, you listening? Wake up, Dan. No, just that we're aware of that trigger, because I think it's right to let the residents know when that trigger is. And if we just bring it to a meeting and all of a sudden we're like, hey, we're gonna go for a bond, and that came out of nowhere, that 45 days or whatever it is bidding triggered, I think we should be forthright in giving people that opportunity if they then think it would warrant public support. So those are basically what my comments are.
I will say that probably 80% of that would be in that presentation. I will probably have to add some stuff about, a little bit more about the bond training. Just to be clear, I've had one bond meeting. That's it. And that was an educational meeting for me, much like you're asking these questions, for me to ask the bond counselors, how does this work? How does a municipal bond work? What are the pros and cons? What are the limitations? And so that's the only meeting. Didn't cost the township a dime. It's just me attending and asking them to come in and explain it. So I'll be more than happy to kind of bring forward a little bit of their presentation, and I'll expand on what I was thinking I'd be doing. The only thing in there that just to set expectation is that there are not projects out there that are even remotely close to being costed out yet. So, I mean, from that standpoint, there may not be, and that's why I want to make sure we're clear, is that there may not be here's the 4 or 5 and here's exact da-da-da. Well, that's because the only one that's actually been costed out is the fire station.
Right.
And we went through that, we explained how it all broke down, how much money it was gonna take, so on and so forth. That was kind of the template, Chief and I talked about, that's gonna be the template that would be used going forward for any other projects, when they got to that point that it was warranted.
Right.
Now, the idea here is to bring those forward quickly, because there's an advantage if we are going to, which, by the way, there's 5 or 6 other tools that could be used to deal with the financing of this stuff. I've not gotten any quotes or anything else on the bonds. I'm just looking at it as an option. It's a very common one in municipalities to use, as you all are, I'm sure, familiar, but there are other ones. And so by going through and getting a good understanding of the engineering and the cost and the analysis and the recurring maintenance and all that kind of stuff, that all needs to get done first and foremost, so we can determine the scope and size of the projects. And so anything prior to that would be, I would agree 100%, a waste of my time to do. Okay?
Yeah, and just a point that there might be some projects that we want to piggyback onto with a bond. We haven't had an opportunity to privately kind of bounce around proposed things, so we should set that. Because I know you have your projects you want to do, but I mean, they may be in line with yours or tied to yours, or be in addition to yours, that needs that I think that we would discuss if we're finding creative ways to get some stuff advanced, so I just want to be able
I think
to.
that when we get
uh,
through this, I'm sorry to interrupt, when we get through this, I think you're gonna find that everything you're asking is there. It'll be there, okay?
Okay.
There is no intent on
No,
my
I
side
know.
to not give the transparency, but as trustee Tedder said, and made a couple times, this township is terrible at keeping secrets. And so part of these things are negotiation type things that do need to get held close to the vest. But again, as you, trustee Tedder, and you both are advocating, nothing can be done that commits the township in any fashion without the board's approval and should be done in a public setting. I'm 100% behind that. And that is 100% the commitment that I would be making. I would never try to even lock us in verbally. Haven't done it. Okay. Trustee now, Matthew.
Couple points. I think you trying to, if you wanted something on the ballot, we just wasted 3 weeks because you guys denied a closed session, where a lot of this would have already been discussed. You would have known what was going on. And secondly, the point that you just said you'd like to piggyback and talk to him privately, that's exactly what the closed session was supposed to be with us, so you could talk through some of that. But now it's okay for you to meet with him privately, and because it's something you want, where we couldn't talk with our attorney about it during closed session with the board. I'm just kind of confused on that, and why, your project shouldn't be open to the public right away. It just,
Oh, it can be
I don't
open to the
understand that
public.
comment. I
I'm
don't
not fine
understand
with
that
yelling it
comment.
out. I just, I don't, we didn't get enough information at the closed session to know exactly what we were gonna be talking about at that closed session that you're talking about. If we're gonna have a closed session, we need to have a specific thing that we're talking about and stay on that specific topic. And my only concern, and I'm trying not to talk about parcels and property, so that's why I'm being vague, okay? Otherwise, I would be happy to blurt it out. But what I'm saying is, I'm talking about things like expanding possibly what he might be thinking. So, or that it could be a bigger thing, or it could be somewhere else. And we haven't had a chance to kind of get into, not even the nuts, the weeds of it, but just kind of we've talked about projects, not the mechanics of the projects. And I think if we had a dialogue a little bit more about the mechanics, and that it would help everybody work collaboratively. So when we do bring it forward, we have a lot more consensus, to do it, because whether we do stuff in different locations, and, we got stuff we gotta do, and that's why I'm a little vague, Terry, on that. If we go into a closed session, I just want to know what it is specifically we're going into, and that we're not going to come out of it and then act on it. There's a difference between a closed session conversation and a closed session action coming out, and I wasn't aware of what was exactly going to be in that closed session, or what the outcome could be. I didn't want to go into the closed session, talk about buying a piece of property, and then come out of the closed session and we buy a piece of property. So that was my biggest issue with it, that I need to know what the steps after closed session need to be made, so I know that we're not going in and then we're coming out and immediately making a move on something and then gonna figure out the details later. That was my concern, if that makes,
Yeah, it makes
that's a
sense.
good explanation, does it make?
Yeah, and I think that, so yes, I agree, which is part of the reason why I'm doing the briefs. That was just kind of, as I'm sure all of you have figured out, that was my way of saying, okay, if we're not gonna do a closed session, then I need to get the information out, and that was my way of trying to get the information out. It also relates back to the consent agenda, me pulling that one thing out, because I did believe that the attorney's opinion for going into closed session was in the packet. And so that was a mistake on my part, which I obviously openly admitted and took it out. So, I can appreciate too where you're coming from based on your comment. From that standpoint, I think we're all in agreement on what we would like to see going forward. And again, the intent is to provide the information in a timely fashion. And even though technically, yes, you go into closed session, you come out and you say yes, but you're saying you want to have time to digest it before the closed session, and then you can have a meaningful conversation at that point in time, and then a motion typically follows after a closed session. But that's fine.
But it doesn't have to.
Does not have to.
Correct.
I think that our next closed session, talking about the CIPs, should be just that it should be about parcels, property, perspectives, and the scope, and not come out of it and make a decision. Just be able to have a discussion amongst us about the goals and objectives of the board in that regard, is I think would help us get to the finish line faster, personally.
Time permitting.
Yeah, and,
Trustee Tucker.
yeah, if I may, just want to reiterate what Trustee Morocco said and kind of in response to Trustee Nalamothu. One of the primary reasons I voted no was because there was an absence of supporting information about something I didn't have any direct knowledge of. And so I do appreciate Supervisor Fowle acknowledging that, because it's an important qualifier in explaining why I voted no on closed session, because I will not go into closed session. And for the public's benefit, it requires supermajority to go into closed session, but simple majority to transact a vote to accomplish what was discussed in closed session. And, Supervisor Fowle, you and I had a brief discussion after that meeting, and you disclosed to me that there was a time-sensitive contract that we needed to discuss and vote on during that meeting. And so that would have been a extremely poor way, had that fleshed out. We go into closed session, we come out, and all of a sudden a 4-3 vote. We've just purchased something, again, absent details. And so I take it really seriously when I'm asked to go into closed session. I don't just consider it a rote exercise. I appreciate the value that closed sessions bring, but I think they should be very limited. And again, one final exclamation point here is, again, I've been hearing information for months from outside the township and within the township about things that I did not have prior knowledge of. And that's your decision, but I don't think it shows collaboration. I think there's an absence of that, and I'm not going to just wake up one meeting and come out of closed session and support a very heavy transaction without having some level of participation leading up to it. And again, yeah, you're right. You can continue to go that road, but that's my concern moving forward. It's been my concern. I know I've expressed that in the past, but I think we need to be more, if we're going to have these big conversations, I think they should also be done in the public, rather than little pocket conversations here and there.
Trustee
I have
Nalamothu.
one more comment on that. I look at it as like we have a township attorney, and I trust his opinion with the supervisor when it is time to go into a closed session. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. All right. There was no action to be taken on that. It was a discussion.
That's it. Thank you.
And so the next thing is a closed session. So,
Make a motion to enter into closed session for the purposes of discussing a legal opinion regarding pending litigation pursuant to MCL 15.268E and H.
Second.
can I roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
And Clerk Newbeck, yes. It
Okay,
is
so that's
6:58.
At 6:58, we're out for closed session. Thank you. Motion to return from closed session, please.
I'll make a motion that we return from closed session at
Second.
7:24.
Three.
7:23. It's
Second.
been second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're back in session. Okay, so also at this point in time, I would like to get a motion regarding the Pine Knob offer for the agreement.
I'll make a motion to deny the proposed settlement agreement and release as offered by 313 Presents and reviewed by the Board of Trustees, which thereby resolves the pending litigation with no further appeal.
Support.
All right, can I get a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu? Yes. Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. And then, where's the agenda? Where's my agenda sheet? All right, so at this point then, we are at the communication future agenda items and reports. Reports, Building Department, February 2026. Fire Department, November 2025. Fire Department, December 2025. Audit Advisory Committee, June 16, 2025. Video Center Administrative Board, November 19, 2025. Any board member comments at this point?
I just have a question, and maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. But I've been getting a lot of questions regarding the SAD projects that we've had in the past regarding roads. I'm getting a lot of people coming to me about it. I don't have an answer for them because I don't know what to tell, there's nothing for me to tell them. I know that, that we previously have been working on a way to distribute those or, reopen the program when, so I don't know if there's you have any information you can give me on that.
Yeah, so I can give a little bit of feedback, actually, literally as of 1:56 today. So obviously, we loaned out all that money, the $3.2 million. We've got about a third of it back. So the people decide not to pay the interest and amortize it over the life of the loan. They paid it back, which is about $1 million. Obviously, we have probably north of 30 to 40 million in requests from the different subdivisions. And then it became a question of, okay, how are we going to allocate that out, so on and so forth. It seemed to me that was just going to be a mess, no matter what. So I did start a different idea, and that was to go through and find a way to do a joint partnership with the private-public side of things, where the private companies would go out and do the jobs, so they're still getting the much discounted rate from the RCOC rates that they've been getting. So kind of the same thing that they did with the 3.2. And then there's some mechanics working up behind the scenes and trying to work with them to figure out how can we assure the private companies that they're going to get paid. So through there, as of 1:56 today, I am now going to have a meeting with probably one of the largest asphalt companies in America, and we're going to have a conversation to figure out how to work that out. So that's been in motion for about the last month and a half, 2 months, and we just finally got to the point where I've reached to that level where it's going to get to the thing. So we should know something here probably in the next month. So if any residents, because there has been a few residents that have emailed me, I've responded with the fact that we are looking at doing something in which I just coined a private SAD. The difference is that we would probably act more as the collection vehicle to pay the private entity, but the private entity would carry the paper. So if it works, then it's completely scalable, right? We're not constrained by the funds that we have available. So that means literally, depending on what the paving companies can carry and all that kind of stuff, I mean, literally there could be $50 million, $60 million in paving projects that get done conceivably this year or next year, depending on schedules, where we would never be able to do that as a township. So that's kind of the program I worked. Kind of a fun little fact that I called around and asked a bunch of my fellow supervisors, and they're like, nope, never heard of that. Talked to the county, they're like, nope, never heard of that. So if we do it, we're innovators. So, they're kind of all watching to see how it plays out. But I think it's going to go through. I think we got a great opportunity and a great chance. And the good thing is our residents will be taken care of first.
Question on that. Are we having conversations with multiple paving companies?
It's not even
Or
the
is
paving
it-
company, it's the asphalt company.
Okay.
So, from a paving company, so pretty much every paving company in Michigan uses this one asphalt company. They're the largest in the nation. So, from that standpoint, we're not picking, first of all, the paving companies couldn't carry think about any one that you could think of. The odds are they wouldn't be able to carry that much paper. So to me, I was sitting there thinking like, okay, well now then we're gonna have to go in and figure out how we're gonna split it out amongst all the different, and that became almost less complicated than trying to figure out how to allocate the 3.2 or the million that came back. But I'm like, there's gotta be still even a better way of doing it. And I'm like, then I found out that really there's one asphalt company that pretty much services the state of Michigan. And so from that standpoint, and when I say they're the vast majority of the percentage, they're a big public company, they can carry the paper, they can carry the total paper. Now, are they willing to? I don't know yet. We're gonna have that conversation. And then from there, it becomes more of, then the next level of questions would then come down to, okay, what are their criteria? Because they may say, okay, I think it would get to the point with having a conversation with the board and everything else and saying, okay, where do we want to stop? Where do we want to not be involved, right? So at some point, let the private companies deal with it. We will pay, the paving the asphalt company, they can deal with all the subcontractors and everything else. That's their job. And just kind of like we do now with the 3.2, we don't specify which one. They still have to meet the engineering designs and all that other stuff for county. They would still have to do all of that. We're just trying to make it easier to make sure that there's a collection point, and that's really what's appealing to these guys is like, okay, so we don't have to, there's a couple things there. One, we don't have to go find new business. Two, is that we don't have to worry about payments. So, yeah, that seems pretty good. Now, the devil's in the detail and everything else, but that's kind of where we're at. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, you said pretty much, so I don't know if there are other options out there, because if they are the largest in the nation, they might not want to be dealing with nickel-dime subdivisions when they're doing Interstate 75, right?
Yep.
So I'm just saying, I think for transparency's sake, the least going through the exercise of getting multiple bids or having multiple conversations with paving companies, if there's truly only one in existence, that's one thing, but I think a medium-sized company might equally be interested and say, we've got the bandwidth to do 2 of these at any given time, and maybe another company might have the bandwidth to do a couple, and so on. That's all. I'm not discounting that a big company like that would not want to be in the subdivision business and derive interest off of that work.
Well, I think it's got to be the volume, so, just, I guess we're having a little bit more of a discussion I thought we would have at this point, but, it's not just us. I mean, if you look at it right now, there's probably, based on the 14 that we had at the end of last year, you're talking somewhere north of 40 million. Even though you think about some of the bigger paving companies here, they can't carry more than like 6 or 7. So you would have to have a lot of them. And then it comes down to, how do we pick them? Which one do we pick? How do they do it? So on and so forth. It becomes a lot more administrative work. Not saying that it's not better than the 3.2 and trying to figure out what to do with the million, gives more options. But when I've talked to some of the other supervisors and actually county, they're like, that's a really interesting thing. So it goes from possibly 30, 40 million to overnight 100 million. And then maybe 300 million. So that's where the numbers are gonna get really interesting for them. And especially since they found out that the payback is a third. Now, I don't know if that's typical, but that's what it was here. They're like, okay, so it's a short term. Well, okay, on a third of it, okay. So, but again, not sure yet. I'm just gonna keep going down that road, figure out, and if we have to start back from there, I'd rather have us deal with one entity that is of that magnitude than trying to deal with 20. And then still having to come back out and say, nope, the 20 are full, you 15 or 5 or 1 or 2, whatever. We have to figure out how we're gonna pick them. You don't get to do it this year. You have to wait till next year.
So you're basically trying to avoid anybody having to wait.
Exactly right. I'm trying to give everybody
In
the
lieu of a lottery
ability
would
to
be
go
the
on their
only-
own timetable.
Yeah, and a lottery would probably be the only, quote, fair way, I guess, because I know there's just a lot of, it's all over the place, too,
Yeah.
not just in our township. I know that I talked to people in some other townships.
But
that
how
would
many
be
of
the
them are
same thing.
ready?
I know one now that's ready.
Okay, no, I'm not saying there aren't, but
They
there's a
are.
lot
Oh,
of,
they are.
lot of legwork to do
There
to
is
get
legwork,
ready
for
and
sure.
to get 51% of the vote. It takes a lot of
Yep.
effort. So
For sure.
wanting and being ready is a
Two different
big
things.
leap
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah.
Well, maybe worthy of a discussion item on, the next meeting and the one after, just to dig a little deeper, because I'm also getting those questions
Okay.
about the SAD program and what happened and where we at. So I think it's a great value to the residents, and we also might want to have a conversation. We maybe be the facilitators, like, here's Acme Construction, Acme Paving Company, whatever. Here, they've got a program. Go forth and work with them, and
Yeah, no.
without us having to be burdened with staffing,
Exactly,
that
and
sort
that's kind of the
thing.
intent here. But I did not want to put the cart in front of the horse, and actually, we did just a little bit. I'd much rather have had the meeting with this next person to make sure that it was even viable, because again, a big part of things, right, is that there's always gonna be, I always look at it this way. A third of the people are gonna get excited, a third are gonna be a wait and see, and a third are always gonna be against you. I don't need that third that's gonna be against the program for whatever possible reason to muck things up for the other 2/3. So that's why I tend to be a little bit slower on rolling some things out before I know, okay, here's the things, here's the program, here's what we're looking at. Now what question, we know this is a viable option. Is there something I missed? And then have those different other levels of conversation and figure it out where we're gonna go, instead of just pontificating. I had a different thing I was gonna say, but it would be inappropriate.
Good call.
Can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Sure.
Is the sheriff's department here upon your request?
No. The sheriff's department's here because he needs to be more engaged in the community. So from that standpoint, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not, he lives in the community too. So.
I know, there was a request for it.
There was.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that, are we doing that, are we not doing that, are we,
So we have not,
requesting services or not, and I think the board can decide however they want to, but it is a resource, and I think that we should have a consensus for it, if we are doing
yeah,
that,
and so he is here because I expressed the concerns. And we actually had 2 incidents last week where I had to actually call the sheriff on one of them. So, during that point in time, we had the conversation, and he's like, hey, you know what, I can just come. So he's not even billing us to sit here. So from that standpoint, it doesn't cost us anything, the township, the taxpayers, anything. But he is here, and he said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to
Great, thank
engage.
you.
Yeah, so he's doing it out of being a good neighbor, resident guy. Not because it's a paycheck involved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is he looking to get his roads done too, or?
I don't know, I don't even know where he lives, so.
I don't either.
Okay, any other comments?
Thank you for your answer, though. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
All right, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.